Hazem, it's great to see you again back here in Berlin, this time with 4,000 members of your industry. It's extraordinary numbers. Do you think that reflects how challenging the times are? People want to come here and find solutions?
Well, first time, it's so good to see you, and thank you for having me on your program again. Indeed, today I think the biggest challenge which most the industry finds is access to capital. So that's why today you find, probably you're spot on, kind of the largest number of GPs, not just from Europe, for the very first time, Asian GPs, North American GPs, who are coming here looking for capital.
What do you think their key challenges are at the moment? It's been a very tumultuous period. The last 12 months has been tricky, but perhaps it's starting to stabilise. Would you say that's what you categorise it as?
So Emma, the single most important factor that exists today that did not exist 12 months ago when we met is inflation. Inflation had a knock-on effect throughout our industry and other industries. First and foremost, the macro outlook is significantly more hindered today than any point in the last even 3 years, even during the COVID years. But second of all, look at the source of capital, the LP community. LP community is struggling, first of all, with that denominator effect. Inflation means that for many of the pension funds, it's putting a lot of pressure on their requirement for liquidity. And that is relocating a lot of their strategies away from the illiquid strategies, such as private equity, to more liquid strategies, like credit, infrastructure, and real estate.
So there are sectors you would say that are being preferred in this environment. Just tell me a bit more about that and what you're seeing.
So first, in terms of assets, clearly asset class. Today, we at Investcorp, we've got investors literally from Japan all the way to LA, about 23 billion AUM. So we do have very, very good visibility on what investors are looking for. Top of the shopping list, infrastructure investing and direct lending. These are consistently the two themes or the two asset classes that investors are very much looking to deploy capital in. As it comes to specific sectors within private equity, we see the investors more trying to take a regional look. There is clearly a shift out of China. Why is that? Not because of any macro challenges with China, but because of the fear of what if when it comes to North America investing. Second of all, regions such as the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Japan, India are becoming very, very attractive hubs for private equity investing. Europe and North America will always do fine despite of any macro challenges. The reason is they have survived the test of time. Investors over and over again have been able to make money in the US and Europe even during tough times.
You talked there about making money. You also were asked earlier about what your responsibility is as a CEO in this environment. How would you categorise that? How would you describe what your true responsibility is?
I hope not just myself, but everyone at Investcorp will always be remembered as being a responsible human being and investor first and for all. Responsibility doesn't mean catching on the catchphrase that everybody's talking about ESG and carbon neutral and renewable energy and what have you. No, I think it goes beyond that. It is being a responsibility, as I was saying this morning, to anything from the cloud to the little tree to the water reservoirs to also kind of the pensions of many of the employees of our portfolio companies. And particularly in the UK, there have been some very unfortunate stories where employees of 20, 30, 40-year tenures, at the time of their retirements, they found their pension schemes underfunded. And this industry, the private equity industry, does have a responsibility to ensure that does not happen ever again.
It's really important for your image as an industry, isn't it, going forward, that you're not seen in those lights as well?
I hope we are not doing what we do to preserve our image. There needs to be a higher purpose. As conduit, as custodians of capital, as owners of, I think today about 20% of the businesses in Europe, responsibility needs to be beyond image. Your image is a cause effect of how you act, as opposed to something which you proactively work for.
So what do you look for in those businesses that you want to, in the portfolio businesses, what do you look for in them? Because some people are saying that actually at the moment we're seeing surprising resilience in businesses that have perhaps learned from previous situations like the global financial crisis, and they're actually more resilient than they were in previous recession type environments.
Yeah. So Emma, Europe and more specifically has always been a much more responsible marketplace. Businesses on average have had less leverage, less debt, than their peers in other parts of the world. This means that you can weather the storm in a better manner. The governments have really starting with the 2008 financial crisis. The regulators have done a very good job making sure that that financial crisis does not happen again. And I think the proof is today. The reality is you probably have a good dozen bank failures in North America and the US in the last month, from Silicon Valley Bank to First Republic and what have you. You don't see those circumstances in Europe. And perhaps there is whatever the regulatory environment have put in place have paid off.
So Hazem, this is the biggest ever SuperReturn International, 4,000 members of your industry here. So what conversations are you looking forward to having, and what do you think will be forefront of people's minds when they meet up with you and other top level people here?
So first time, it's an absolute delight to be here and participating in SuperReturn now for the last 15 years. So nice to see everybody back here together, people reconnecting, particularly post the COVID crisis. I think for us at Investcorp, it's really threefold. First of all, reconnecting with old partners, peers, friends, investors who during the last few years was difficult to connect to in person. Second of all, learning. And the conference does have an incredible depth of programs, talks, panels. And you know what, we learn every day, every single one of us, and that is terrific. Third of all, as the industry evolved, we Investcorp have been one of the more active participants in acquiring some GPs who complement our offering. We continue to be true to ourselves, which is focusing on the private markets, and we'll continue to be global. And with that, there are certain pockets which I hope we can fill with certain managers who can come on board and be part of the Investcorp family.
Talking about managers there, in this sort of environment, I guess those that operate the best rise to the top. Do you think an environment like this is revealing to those that have perhaps succeeded because of the environment rather than their skill? Are we seeing a change in that, do you think?
Yeah. Emma, I think LPs are a little bit more sophisticated, so they do a very good job tracking investors, GP investors, and also betting their money on those who they believe have the potential to succeed in various markets. We're very proud that we have grown our AUM from 20 billion 4 years ago, to 53 billion today. Others have done a much better job. Good for them. That means they're doing something right. And I think we're all here to learn from how our peers grow and evolve and be relevant to our investors, and that's terrific.
And I guess do that in a sustainable way.
Of course. Sustainability is, we are all glad that it is anchor part of people's thinking. We have just released yesterday our sustainability report, and proud to have pretty much all of our private equity companies, all of our business owners directly in private equity, credit or real estate that are following quite a stringent kind of social responsibility principles, which we very much can believe in.
Talking about social responsibility, one thing that's been asked about at this conference and is in the headlines is AI, the use of AI. What do you think about that and its adoption, and how responsible do you need to be as an industry when you're backing AI products?
Yeah. So Emma, I remembered when I started my career in the early 90s as a young analyst in one of the banks. One of the key things I had to do all the time was making copies of memos and sending faxes to the other offices and what have you. And then in 1995, emails came up. And I remember my first session was like, oh my God, there's no job for me, I'm done. Because suddenly you can send all communication by electronically. But we have evolved. And I think same way, AI is an important tool. It will help us do our job better. Can AI replace humans? Perhaps if there's aspects of what we do that could be replaced by AI, that's great, because that means we as human beings will just evolve into doing more than just what we've been doing in the past. The same way myself faxing memos, and fortunately not anymore.
So you don't think they're going to take over the world?
Maybe you'll see it in a sci-fi movie and have some popcorn and enjoy it.
So just finally, what do you hope somebody walks away with if they've had a chat to you this week, and what do you hope to impart, and what are your thoughts going forward now for the next 12 months?
What I always really kind of say internally is, let's just be calm. We don't need to panic. We don't need to catch that falling knife or catch that opportunity. Just being calm, being measured in how we react. That has been one of the anchors of how private equity investors make money. We're not traders. We don't follow the last penny or try to time it right. We try to hopefully fundamentally build solid businesses that leave a legacy and have a solid and a positive impact in their communities. If we can accomplish that, what a great day it was.
Be patient.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for having me.